Good morning, everybody. Al Emery here with Momentum Software Solutions, and welcome to our MYOB Advanced webinar for April. We did actually have an additional webinar yesterday because we wanted to help everybody get across how to manage the JobKeeper process through the Advanced Payroll module. Today is the more scheduled webinar. And given the current state of the economy, we thought it would be relevant to talk about options within MYOB Advanced that you can use to help keep control over things from a cost management perspective and I guess audit control as well. And today's webinar is going to be in two halves. So I'll be presenting for the first 30 minutes, and I'm going to go through those key cost control processes that you can manage within MYOB Advanced. And then the second part of the webinar, we're going to be having a presentation by a partner of ours called Dataline, and they are in accounts payable automation. So we'll get on to those folks shortly. First and foremost, I want to get into the particular functionality within MYOB Advanced that we think that businesses can use to take advantage or keep control of expenses and have a good understanding of where their business is at any point in time. So I'm going to show you through that through our demonstration system, and I'll just bring that across to the screen in one moment. So firstly, we're going to look at budgets and forecasts, how to manage and create budgets and forecasts, reporting against those budgets and forecasts. And we'll move on to some of the approval functionality in MYOB Advanced, which is quite extensive and a great way of keeping control over various aspects of things. And then we'll also look at audit trail, which is an easy way of seeing who has done what, or in particular, who has changed what. So you should be seeing my MYOB Advanced screen right now, and I'm logged in as a manager. I'll just touch on a couple of navigation shortcuts that tend to be underutilized. So obviously in MYOB Advanced, you have your menus on the left, and they all have the key options within that functional area. So finance, I can look at budgets. But even without doing that, the search box at the top of the screen is your friend and will save you time on a daily basis. So as soon as you type in the word budget, that automatically searches through the menu items, and you can see that it's immediately showing me the same options, the budget functionality, as well as any report that contains the word budget, and also the configuration options relating to budget. So a much quicker way of navigating around the system is just type in a word or part of a word in the search box. So in MYOB Advanced, you have the concept of branches. Depending on how your business has been set up, you may have one or more branches. Branches can be separate companies, or they can be divisions within a company. In my case, they're a little bit of both, in fact. So we have a Queensland company broken up into two branches, Brisbane and Sunshine Coast. So the ledger that we're looking at is the budget ledger. And the financial year we're budgeting for is 2020. And you'll see what should be a fairly familiar looking screen layout in terms of most budgets work this way. So you have a chart of accounts with a row for each account. You have the description of each account, and then you have the budget value per period, displayed as period 1 through period 12, and period 13 might exist as well if your system is configured to have a 13-period financial year. Normally you would not budget for that period. That's for end of year adjustments. You can manage the budget in various ways, and the most common ways that accountants, financial controllers, managers do it is in Excel. So any screen in Advanced will have these two options, the Excel icon, which exports it to Excel, and the upload icon, which will load it back in. So let's have a look at those options. So drop that information directly to a spreadsheet. Open that in Excel. And you'll see I've got virtually the identical layout in Excel now, and I can easily update some values. Likewise, you can upload that budget straight back in. Because I've dropped it directly from this screen, all of the fields in the spreadsheet exactly match what's in the screen. And that's now updated those lines. You can see that I've got a warning against them, and that's because I've kind of broken the rule in that some of the values I've inserted in the spreadsheet exceed the total amount to distribute. So that's a warning only. And update those. So budgeting in Excel is how most people prefer to work, and as you can see from that example, it's quite easy to just drop the screen into Excel, edit your budget in Excel, use whatever formulas and things you might use to distribute values, and then re-import it. Other options you have is effectively this amount column is the financial year total amount for a particular account. So let's say sales, I had 50,000 to distribute. And you can choose how to distribute those values across the periods. So what that's done is updated this row with the equal value per period based on the full amount for the financial year. So with budgets, the other thing you can do in the screen is actually compare to last year's actuals would be a common scenario. So if I want to have 2019 financials for the same branch using the actuals ledger, and that's going to show me a comparison row for every single account that I can easily check how realistic is my current budget. If you were doing a forecast, you might well compare, instead of comparing to actuals, you might compare your new budget to your new forecast to your previous budget. So you can actually choose to compare to actuals or a budget. So that's budget preparation. I go back to my search screen. The next step you would do once you're happy with the budget is to release all of those budget articles and that effectively posts that budget into the budget ledger so that you can then start reporting against it. One thing I might just quickly go back and touch on in your budgeting process is that you can, apart from the comparisons, Advanced has a reporting feature that's commonly used with our customers called sub-accounts. So sub-accounts can be used for all kinds of things, breaking transactions and budgets into departments and cost centers. You can have multi-level sub-accounts. Some of our customers have 3 or 4 levels. So you can filter on that sub-account either on an entire sub-account or the first or second part or segment, we refer to them as the sub-account. So one GL account might actually be broken into multiple sub-account values, and that would be quite common. So you can filter on any of those aspects. If I just go to, say, 02, then any budget value that's currently in the screen ending in 02, I'm going to be able to filter in that screen. Now, you can do the same in Excel, obviously, using filters on your column headings. So I just sort of touch on that aspect of budgeting. So then we can look at reporting, and there are various reports that can be configured in MYOB Advanced using the Financial Report Designer. With a little bit of training or guidance from Momentum, customers can fairly easily do them themselves. I'll just show you a couple of examples. So profit and loss versus budget for the prior month. So you can see I've got obviously have an actuals column, a budget column, a variance in percentage. That's year to date, and then we've got year to date actual month actual month budget. All of the values in the financial reports are drillable. So you can drill to what effectively is a sub-report that then shows you the transaction level detail at the next level down. So in this case, we've got 3 different accounts making up that reported value. You can then drill in either by the sub-account or by the natural account to get to the transaction level. You'll see across the top, I've now got 3 tabs open: the report, the first level drill down, and the second level drill down. Now you're down to the transaction level, and you could even look at, so this actually has come from a payroll posting, so we could even drill into that pay batch to get into further level of detail. A really good ability to drill into what's happening. Another example is an operating statement or P&L for 12 months with actuals to budget. So again, I'll go to prior month. In this case, we have a 12-month layout, each with actuals, budget, and a variance by percentage, any of which is drillable. So again, first level drill down at any level in the report itself. We can export the whole thing to Excel or PDF, print it or send it via email, and the same at every level of drill down. Other thing that can come up is in particularly prior to presenting final versions of reports, if errors are noticed with those transactions, Advanced has a nice feature to reclassify. So if something is in the wrong account or even right account, wrong sub-account, many, not all transactions, but many or most can actually be reclassified. So that'll bring up a screen that allows you to reallocate that to a different account or sub-account, or I think date or period as well, depending on the transaction type. Okay, so just back to our agenda, budgets and forecasts. So hopefully that was a good introduction to how that operates, and then reporting against that. So we'll move on to approvals. Again, I'm just using my search to bring up the appropriate things to show you. So assignment and approval maps is a very strong area within MYOB Advanced, and this is not an extensive list, but most transaction types can be set to require approval. In the first instance, you could describe it as any transaction that would result in an outflow of cash. Purchase request, requisition, purchase order, expense claim, timesheet, creditor invoice, payment run, payroll, as well as a lot of the sales facing activities like quotes. Those that could be both sales quotes and project quotes. So all of those can be set up as part of your assignment and approval map. I'll use a fairly common example, which is a purchase order approval map. Now these can be set up with different conditions, and those are rules, if you like. So what condition causes this transaction to require approval, and who does it require approval by? Approval can be set to be assigned to specific people and or a work group. Generally speaking, a specific person works best, and then things can be escalated. So in this simple example, we've got purchase orders under 5,000 that require approval by Pam Ellis, and purchase orders over 5,000 that require approval by Michael Andrews. I'm logged in as Michael Andrews, so that's me there. Simultaneously, I'm logged in as Bob employee, and he has raised this purchase order just this morning, so here's one I did earlier. And the value of this purchase order is obviously over 5,000. So with the approvals feature turned on, if the approvals feature is not turned on, you wouldn't even see this tab. With the approvals feature turned on, an approvals tab appears on any transaction type that's been configured. And we can see that the status of the purchase order, so effectively it's been entered, saved, and taken off hold. It immediately goes pending approval. And the approvals details tab tells me who needs to approve that purchase order. In this case, it's Michael Andrews. There's several ways that that approval can be brought to Michael's attention. So firstly, that can be through a dashboard. There's a standard dashboard called Tasks and Approvals. And flicking back to Michael's display, I can see my approvals, and there's a purchase order waiting for me to look at. Additionally, there can be an email configured. And that email would be sent immediately. I think they normally run on a schedule, can be every minute or two, to notify that person that there's something that needs to be approved. And thirdly, there's also the mobile app. So I'm just going to quickly log out from Michael. And I'm going to test mirroring my screen. MYOB Advanced has a mobile app. Most of the main features that you can do in the browser, you can also do in the mobile app. And all of the security configuration within the mobile app works the same as in the browser. So somebody will only see as icons what they're entitled to see as part of their license and role and security configuration. So you can see there's an approvals area. So the same way I can see on the browser or in my dashboard what my approvals are, I can see that purchase order there is waiting approval. Click on that and either approve it or reject it. So that all happens in real time. MYOB Advanced mobile app works live. I sign out from the app. Go back to my browser. Look at my purchase order. I'll just refresh the screen. Employee. Okay, so that purchase order is now approved. Sign back onto my browser as my manager. So that same approval functionality can apply to all of those different transaction types: customer refunds, expense claims, preparation of payroll, preparation of payments to suppliers. So it really does introduce a whole level of control that perhaps isn't available in other systems you've used, or may not have been implemented in your initial implementation, but certainly can be implemented now. And then finally, I just want to look at aspects of audit trail. So obviously, audit trail is able to tell you who has changed what and when in the system for key data that you want to track. Again, I'll just use my search. I have audit preferences and the audit inquiry or the audit history. Now, things that you probably would be wanting to audit is things like supplier information, customer information, pricing information. You can audit just about anything in the system. I have chosen an example this morning where prices. The sales prices is where the different price values for the different stock items are maintained. That can be done in various ways. You can have customer-specific pricing, price levels that customers are assigned to, promotional pricing, all kinds of things. So you browse through the system to find the functional area that you're looking to audit. You will then be presented with a table or list of tables that make up that functional area. Generally speaking, the fields you want to show and audit would be, they're called UI fields, UI standing for user interface. Any system has a lot of behind the scenes fields. So if you go all fields, you might see things that you're never going to see on the screen. So you usually would just say UI fields. Select that table and then mark the fields as active that you want to audit. So I've ticked most of them. I've made this audit active at all levels. I now go back to my inquiry. So only the screen IDs that I have made active will appear in my inquiry list. You can see that the sales prices is active. And if I look at the inquiry, I need to select the table. And it's showing me that a particular inventory ID, its price was changed today at 9:27 by Michael Andrews, and the new price was made to be $500 with an effective date of yesterday. So that's just a great example of how granular the audit tracking capability in MYOB Advanced is. We can look back at prior changes in the supplier master file. We're looking at different changes done on different days by different people, and it will show you what that change was. So very granular ability to have security and track what's happening in the system. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there before I introduce the presenter for the second part of the webinar. I'm going to open the floor for any questions that people have about those areas I've covered so far this morning. So feel free to unmute your microphone and ask me whatever you would like. Okay, so no questions. Now I'm just going to hand over the control to Steve Morell. Steve is with our guest company called Dataline. I'll leave him to explain to you what they do and how they work and the benefits. But we have a number of customers using their solution, and feedback's been it's able to reduce their labour effort by 2 full-time employees at month end getting accounts payable in. Now that doesn't mean they've reduced their accounts payable workforce, but it's just how much more efficient they've made themselves, leaving aside the accuracy benefits. Now I'm just going to hand over to Steve and make Steve the presenter.
Just have to find the right screen.
If you go to share content, under that share option, the first one, and then it should give you options to share the whole desktop, or you can share a specific application.
Ooh.
Okay, so I'm seeing your presentation now.
Okay, you are. That's good.
Over to you, Steve.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for sparing a little bit of time this morning to listen to me and understand a little bit more about what we do with the MYOB Advanced product and how we add on to that to provide an accounts payable automation solution, or 2. We actually have 2, and I'll discuss those. So I'll just see if I can get this running. Okay, so my name's Steve Morrell. I'm the Business Development Manager for the Dataline Group. We're based in Sydney, and we have customers ranging from Perth to Auckland and everywhere in between, running on MYOB Advanced or running on MYOB Excel or MYOB AccountRight. A bit about us. So we've been in business in the accounts payable space for over 30 years. And we've been working in the financial transaction processing area, focusing on payables, on payments outbound and financial reconciliation with banks, and more recently, looking at our cloud-based solution for accounts payable automation. So pulling in invoices from your creditors and suppliers and automating that process through into MYOB Advanced. And we do that in a couple of ways. We also provide some solutions on working capital as well at the back end of that to improve your relationships with your suppliers. And we're just rolling that out this year to a number of our customers. to take advantages of things like early payment discounts for getting approvals through quicker and making payments to suppliers on time or in advance, and extending terms to protect your working capital and liabilities. As I said, for 30 odd years, we've also been in the accounts payable outbound space. We provide desktop printing for checks and consumables, and there are still a number of large government organisations and banks that still print checks, would you believe, in this day, and we support those right across the Asia Pacific region. And as part of our payment solution, we also provide some back-end reconciliation platforms, and we do that for a number of our larger clients, including banks and insurance companies. So we've got a wide range of skill sets, and more importantly, it's all been in the accounts payable space, so we know accounts payable pretty well. If we're looking at our accounts payable solution for MYOB, we work on the 3 platforms for Account Right, Excel and Advanced, and in the advanced space we have 2 different solutions depending on the requirements of the customer, and I'll talk about those. So when we talk about accounts payable automation and invoice processing and what we should do to provide you with some benefits, what's really in it for you? Obviously there's some hard dollars to be saved in the process. It also gets back some time, so you can allocate your resources and time to other more pressing things these days. And we certainly allow you to meet compliance requirements. We have a number of clients who work in this space and really need to have everything documented and completed properly, and sometimes hard copy and handwritten information just doesn't cut it. And it instills a more stringent procurement process within your business. And as Al alluded, there's some good ways to manage your procurement and your requisitioning and purchase order outbound through Advanced. And we look to build on that to provide better ways to reduce your risk and make sure we can match to approved and receipted transactions in Advanced. And it helps prevent fraud as well. We look at ways to trap invoices from suppliers that may be fraudulent, or invoices that are duplicates, stop them being paid twice, those sorts of things, and stop within your organisation, tie down the process of approvals so you know when you do pay a supplier, you're paying it with confidence. And of course it helps improve the environment, getting the paper out of the system right from the beginning. So to give you a quick smattering of where our customers sit in the MYOB space, we have clients running across Australia and New Zealand using our invoice automation, and you might know some of these companies or have dealt with them, and we're in all different verticals within the MYOB space. So in retail and construction, healthcare, transport, hospitality, tourism, education and learning, agriculture, and even resources and mineral exploration, and all the exploration companies use our solution in running MYOB Advanced. So talk a bit more about pricing and what's involved in this. Our solution ranges between $3,000 and $5,000 to set up, and I'll explain the differences between the 2 solutions. So it's and that's an all-encompassing flat fee that gets you up and running, gets users set up on the system, all the testing done, all the training done, the interface is working and up and running day 1. And that includes ongoing training as well. We come back within 4 weeks and do further training sessions to improve your skill sets and fine-tune some of the results. We have transaction pricing. We charge based on the transactions we put through. So for every invoice we process, it ranges in price from $1 down to 60 cents, depending on volumes and the solution that's gone in. And the payback can be in as little as 3 months, depending on your volumes. So to give you an example, we have a small calculator that we use. So for instance, I have a client here that does 500 invoices coming into their business a month. They spend on average around about 10 minutes now to carry out all the standard functions they would do to process that document now. And that's from collecting of an invoice coming in as an email attachment through to filing it away and storing it and every step along the way. And it might be a little bit less for purchase order related ones because there's some auto matching going on there and less authorization out within the business. But this includes the costs of all the people that are involved in the process steps, including the approvers. And when we start to do the numbers and we look at the transaction price we charge, we can see that this client could save potentially around about $25,000 a year in hard costs based on current office rates for employment. So it's very easy to see that if your numbers are reasonable, then there's certainly opportunities for savings. And sometimes the unknowns are, what does it really cost you now to process things manually? And once we can determine those and get that to a finite figure, we can start to see the value coming out of the process. Of course, if the volumes are less than that, the annual return is a bit less. Sometimes the cost to process is much more than this. These are very conservative costs here based on some fairly rigid processes that are in place for this company. So how does the system work? So essentially there's 3 steps to it. There's invoice capture, invoice approval, and then getting the invoices ready for payment. And I'll go through a slight presentation on how this actually works. But the first capture point is getting the paper out of the system at point 1, looking for the best approval process within your business for approving them, and then getting them ready back into advanced, ready for payment in as quickly a time frame as possible. So we try to do this whole process in a very speedy time frame. So if we look at the components, so MYOB Advanced sits in the cloud. Our Dataline advanced payment automation process also sits in the cloud. Our system sits on our servers in Sydney and talks to your MYOB Advanced database through the cloud, through an interface that we have written and supported by MYOB ERP partners. We perform a 2-way synchronization. Firstly, we pull down from the advanced system information that we need to validate against the invoice when it comes in. So we pull down supplier details, geocodes, job codes. In advance, we're also pulling down projects and tasks as well now. And we pull down inward goods receipts and purchase order details. And this allows us to do some very smart things when the invoice comes in. So typically an invoice would, a purchase order would be issued to a supplier. Supplier will ship the goods back to your business or services. And in some cases, it's receipted in as stock. In other clients' cases, you don't do any receipting because of the nature of the business. But then the invoice will come in from the supplier and typically hits your email server, and most customers seem to get them by email now. There will be some that come in as hard copy or come in through other channels. But what we do is we set business rules up on your email server to redirect them to our bureau. So we provide a bureau service that sits behind the scene in our Crow's Nest office in Sydney, and these documents flow through to an email address that we provide. We put a business rule to direct them there, or they can be sent from your office directly to this email address through a one-touch button on a multifunction device, or scanned in from, even suppliers can send them directly to that if they wanted to. Now, our bureau acts as a black box service. So we carry out all the sorts of things that most scanning companies would do. We validate and do corrections, and we use optical character recognition technology to extract information from the invoices. But of course, that's never 100% accurate. So we have people sitting in our bureau as well that will review the fields that we are capturing and capture the ones manually that haven't been done by our automatic solution. So our vision is to be able to provide added value in this process where you as a business don't need to know anything about this technology. You just want to see the finished transaction and the data extracted from it. And that's what we push across into our portal. And our portal view is what you see through a web browser. And we'll jump on the system and have a quick look at that so you understand it. And what we do more efficiently is we can match off the invoice to a purchase order and an inward goods receipt automatically and pass it through now ready for uploading back to MYOB Advanced. So in these cases where you are doing these functions in your procurement process, issuing an approved purchase order and receiving stock back into Advanced, we can perform this task here without any human intervention at all. So now the document flows straight through from our bureau, straight through, ready for upload back to Advanced. So some of our clients are obtaining massive savings here because there's no human intervention anymore in that process. But of course, in the real world, that doesn't always happen. Invoices don't match purchase orders, or the nature of your business doesn't allow you to do receipting in advance. So we can do what we call a two-way match, pull the purchase order information down and sit it in here waiting for a final approval step. And of course, other transactions coming into the business that flow through may not have purchase orders, your standard sort of expense documents coming in. So we can do some validation. First of all, check the supplier to see if they exist in advance. Then we'll check for duplicates to make sure we haven't paid it before. And then we'll look at any manually corrected fields and adjust them as needed. And any that can't be fully completed will be passed across in what we call an exception queue for manual referral. So these transactions produce what we call a liabilities report. So every morning, everything that we have captured and is now digital is reported to you in a spreadsheet. So you know your current liabilities every morning of all the documents that are not yet put back into Advanced. So it's quite a handy little report to get each morning. After that's gone through, all the transactions that have been processed through our bureau are put through onto the screen to allow the AP staff to review and allocate any items for approval. And we do this through workflows. So we have workflows built into our application. So we have two solutions for MYOB Advanced. One where we use our workflows and push it around the business for approval. The other version is just straight through pushing them into Advanced and using the MYOB Advanced approval workflow, as you might have just seen, which includes the mobile approval device. So it really comes down to what best fits for you as a client and what best fits as far as cost and who you want to actually be approving invoices. Do you want those to be advanced users, or do they need to be people within the organisation who just need to do approvals? So we cater for both. And once documents are processed within our application, they go through a final approval step. And in the case of non-purchase order related invoices, they can go through multiple steps around the business for approval through our portal interface. And once they're all approved, those invoice files will pass automatically back into MYOB Advanced that night and be posted as bills ready for payment. So our whole vision is to do this in as quick a time frame as possible. So documents are not lost, they're approved in a timely and effective manner, and they're ready to be put into the payment runs out of Advanced. And this is where you can gain benefits from early supplier payments and paying them on time within your current rules and time frames set up. So without further ado, sort of go through some of the current steps that you would go through. So some of these may resonate to you if you're doing your invoice processing manually. And these are all the costs to the business. So you're opening emails, you're saving attachments, you're creating covering email requests and forwarding out emails for approvers. You're tracking the responses. And this can be a very time-consuming process, understanding who's got them and why they haven't responded. The approver receives and quite often prints out the electronic document and maybe even annotates it in handwriting, adds codes or signatures to it, and then rescans the invoice back into the system and then sends it back under a new email. And the email is received back at accounts payable, and the attachment is resaved as another document because it has changed, and data is finally entered into MYOB and the transaction processed. And then there's the requirement to either store that document electronically or in hard copy, or sometimes attach it into MYOB directly, manually. And then there's obviously opportunities to save other associated documents that might be part of the approval process as well. So they're typically the steps that might resonate with you when you're processing creditor payments, invoices coming in. What we try to do is reduce this to quite a reduced number of steps, where AP operators get to review exceptions, do some data entry that hasn't been done by the system, allocate transactions to workflows if they've not been automated by the system. The approver approves the transaction through that process, and then from an AP perspective, you just monitor any outstanding workflows. So it becomes a much simpler process. There's no paper transfers. There's no filing and saving of documents. That's all done from the very beginning by the system and managed throughout the process and archived within the system for 7 years. So the very first thing that happens is each person within a workflow gets an advice by the system to let them know there's an invoice waiting their action. So this is automated by the system and allows the operator to log on. They log onto the system, carry out their approvals, the transaction is finished, their job is done. And approvals can be done on any device, PCs, tablets, smartphones, and the look and feel is the same. It's a browser-based application, so they would see it as they would normally see it through the browser on those devices. They can look at the image, they can approve the transaction, they can change coding, they can do whatever they're allowed to do, and they can do it through those devices. So let's quickly look at the liability report that you get each morning. And this liability report is issued to the AP department or the CFO or whoever wants to see it. And it basically lists all the transactions that are in the system and have yet been processed and uploaded. And it lets them know the status of those transactions, the totals, the due dates based on the supplier terms, who has them within the system, and any comments that have been made by any operator within the system. And these can be sorted, pre-sorted. If they've been coded, they can be resorted by general ledger codes and used for end-of-month transactional entries into MYOB based on that. So you can use this many ways, and it comes out every morning. So let's jump on the system and have a look and see how it looks. Hopefully you can all see my screen now. So this is the log-on screen that anyone would see. So I'm just going to log on as an approver. You can see it?
I'm not currently, Steve. You might just need to check your sharing settings that you're sharing.
Okay, right, okay.
You were sharing your PowerPoint application specifically, not your whole screen.
Okay, right, okay. Okay, screen 2. You can see it now? Okay, so this is typically a log-on screen that everyone would see when logging onto our portal. I'm just going to log on as an approver. And there's approval screen will give them a short summary of transactions for them to approve. They can view their transactions. They can click on a transaction. They can authorize the transaction. It will bring up the transaction. They can view the image. They can view the coding. They can change the coding. Transactions can be coded as an expense or a stock item. And we support all of the standard fields such as job codes, projects and tasks. In this case, it's coded to an expense. It tells me the detail here that's been extracted by our system. It tells me the workflow that has gone through and any comments in the workflow that have been passed through. It's come to me, and any comments here forwarded by someone else in the workflow, and approving it is simply confirming that the totals agree with the image that I've seen, and I can approve, reject, dispute, or forward it. I'm happy to approve it. Approval process happens. I have a confirmation window to say it's gone through, and that item drops from my list. So from an approver's perspective, it's very quick and simple to carry out the tasks. They only see the tasks that have been allocated to them, and they can go back to their dashboard, and that's their view. I quickly log on as the main administrator of the system, what you would see at the AP area. You'll see here all the transactions that have been processed through our bureau. and they're summarised into two types. We call them non-purchase order invoices and purchase order related invoices. Non-purchase order invoices go through an approval process in a workflow. Purchase order invoices go through a matching process to match them to purchase orders. In this case, I have 13 here that have been already matched by the system, and I've got 5 that haven't matched for some reason. And I can go into those and add additional things such as freight, a rounding amount, change in item value to make those agree, or pick from a list of certain receipts. If there's multiple receipts against the purchase order and an invoice comes in for one of those, I can pick it from a list and approve that. The unallocated ones come here from our bureau, come into this bucket, and they can be pushed out to users through workflows. And that can be done by the system, or it can be manually selected. So if I choose an invoice, I can allocate it to a workflow and push that out. It'll pull the header information. I can choose a workflow to push it out. And workflows can be very simple or very complex, however you want to build them, and they're very quick to build. I've got one here to the Tarman Store Manager. I can include geocoding if the system knows it's been coded. If it hasn't been coded at this point, I can leave it off. So a coding can be done anywhere in a workflow process, and I can add commenting if I want, or I can just allocate this in the workflow, and that will slip out. So from a central point of view, pushing documents out in workflows for approval is very quick and easy, and you can have complex or simple workflows depending on your requirements. Once they're out there, monitoring of those is a very simple process. There's a monitoring screen here that shows you all the documents in workflows, and it shows each user that has documents allocated to them, how many they have, where they are, and you can obviously click through to these to see what documents they have under their control at the moment. And you can drill down to images or the content. And you can drill down to the view as well. So you can look at history, and you can look at any comments that they have made and whether those documents are being processed. So you've got total transparency over the documents. Back to the dashboard. So on a daily basis, the accounts payable clerk basically pushes out the documents for approval, or checks any that haven't matched against purchase orders and deals with those, and handles any rejections that have come back from operators that are decided not to pay documents, or look at exceptions, documents that we haven't been able to process because of various reasons, such as, there's a couple of quick examples. The invoice is a duplicate, so we've picked up that this invoice number has been processed before. You can search within the system to see when it was processed and who did it. Same with invalid suppliers. If an invoice comes through for a supplier that's not found in the database, it'll be flagged and allow you to deal with it. You may not have set up the supplier yet in advance, or the supplier may not be for your business and they've sent it in error, or it's a fraudulent attempt. So you can track those and make sure they don't get processed. The system has a lot of search functionality within it as well. So you can, yeah.
Just letting you know we've got 2 to 3 minutes left.
Okay, well, I think I'm just about done. Okay, so there's some search functionality in there as well, and we can set up demonstrations and go through this with any of you at a day's notice and step you right through it in more detail. So just going back, I suppose if you want further information on it or would like to know a little bit more about what's under the hood, you can give us a call, write to me, or contact me through Momentum, and we can arrange a one-on-one presentation. Ultimately, we've got 2 solutions for Advanced. One where we run our full portal, as you've seen there. The other version, we just push the images and the data into Advanced and let you workflow and approve it through the internal approval process in Advanced. And we have clients using it both ways, depending on their needs. I suppose the difference being our approval and workflow allows you to probably create a little bit more complex approval flows and add users at no cost and work outside of the actual finance system. And in a lot of cases, some customers don't want certain people to do approvals within their finance system. And on the other side, being able to do it within Advanced has some benefits too for the likes of businesses that are set up with multiple users already running in that environment. So I'd like to thank you very much. I know it's been a very quick 25, 30 minutes, but love to engage one-on-one with anyone that might want to know a bit more about it. And thank you, Al.
Thank you, Steve. So I'll just take presentation rights back, and while I'm doing that, I will just pause and invite anybody that has questions. If you want to unmute your microphone and fire away with any questions, either for myself or Steve. So we'll keep the line open for a minute or two just to check if there are any questions. And a reminder that we do record these sessions, so we'll be uploading that to our YouTube channel, and you can always watch it back later. I'll just scroll to the last page of my presentation. There's some web links there. Dataline's website is there. So I'll just pause, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to fire away. Just a reminder to unmute if you do have a question. Okay, looks like no questions. So firstly, I'll thank everybody who attended. There was a number of additional people registered that will receive the recording, Steve. So we will make sure that you're kept in the loop with that. Thanks for all of our customers who have attended the webinar this morning. We hope you found it informative, and there's some aspects in Advanced that you can take advantage of quite quickly, as well as giving you a good introduction to the Dataline solution. So thanks everybody, and we'll be in touch with our next webinar topic in a couple of weeks.